There is a dark cloud looming large over all the civilized people of the world. A large percentage of humankind has not had the benefits that accrue from scientific exploration. There is widespread ignorance and obscurantism in large parts of the world, and this ignorance has resulted in irrational behavior on a large scale. There is urgent need to inculcate scientific temper amongst common citizens in many parts of the world. This may be more important, in fact, more essential than any other international program that we may be pursuing. It is my feeling that knowledge in general and science in particular could usher an era of equality among the peoples of the world.
And these observations on future of science, made on the occasion of the 350th Convocation of Royal Society of London, as a response on behalf of all the fellows, is a rare distinction achieved by him among many such laurels, reveals his prowess in balancing present with future of science. Meet Professor CNR Rao, Chintamani Nagesh Ramachandra Rao, National Research Professor, Linus Pauling Research Professor, Chairman of Scientific Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister of India, rightly much awarded person in his pet research institute, Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Advanced Scientific Research, JNCASR. When he chose to study chemistry of materials, he did not believe that he would be spending his entire life in studying it. From the mundane meaning of chemistry of materials to studying cement, steel, sand or asbestos, he took his inspiration from Linus Pauling, whom he considers his scientific grandfather, and transformed it into a study of molecular structure and understanding of the structure and bonding, from where one starts understanding chemistry. In his research studies and presentations, he probed on the quality of life in human beings and found that it is related to the availability of various materials like not only wood, coal, cement or steel, but the materials needed for electronics, computers, transportation, energy, etc. His research extended to every kind of material, whether organic, inorganic, or biological. A major discovery in 1993 about the colossal magnetoresistance in certain oxides of manganese resulted in a lot of research, emphasizing how oxides are an important aspect in chemistry of materials. He went on to deal in his research papers on multiferroics, which refers to materials possessing magnetic and dielectric properties simultaneously.
Professor CNR Rao is one of the most celebrated Indian scientists of our times.
He is the friend, philosopher and guide of Indian science.
He has an extraordinary international reputation.
He is a volcano. He actually is a volcano, in the sense that he's just so full of energy all the time.
He can be called as the father of materials chemistry in this world.
It's a very rare combination of a great administrator being a great scientist also.
He is a great institutional builder.
Professor CNR Rao is not an individual, he is an institution.
He has a highly disciplined mind which is compartmentalized.
Influencing policies and administrative ways that actually influence and affect our life in positive ways.
He is highly patriotic. I call him as a science patriot of India.
He is in true in a true sense, an all-rounder.
Science is his way of life.
In recent times, Professor Rao has considered nanoscience as his favorite subject and has presented a number of research works on this branch of chemistry.
Actually, nano is something I got interested in long ago, much before others even identified it as a problem. But I got interested in a very small problem long ago. I think this was about maybe 25, 30 years ago. Then carbon nanotubes came, fullerenes came. I got very much interested in it, and it is a wonderful area. It is a young subject, and here is some possibility for India to do something if they want to.
Professor Rao in various avatars. The first one, Professor CNR Rao as an academic person, a researcher, inspirational model. Second one is Professor Rao as a science administrator, a person who has created institutes, a person who has brought a new wave of science enthusiasm in the country. And the third one, Professor Rao as a human being.
First of all, he is a researcher par excellence.
It will be very interesting to know that he started his research doing science and at the very young age of 17, 18, and he published his first paper when he was only about 20. So that tells you that he has been publishing papers for the past 55 or more years. And if you look at this record here, it shows that his publication rate has increased after he has become 60. So normally a lot of people would have retired by 60 and called it a day. But Professor Rao actually doubled his activity and has started taking on more and more new things. One of them is nanotechnology.
The thing about Professor Rao I see is he is driven by passion. The passion to understand drives his chemistry. The passion for India, the love for India makes him a great administrator. His prognostics of seeing how science is going to grow in this country is enormous. That's how he thinks that research is the future capital for India.
Sharing his excitement about new ideas, new results, writing new paper or new correcting papers, and most importantly about interesting advice to young researcher like me about how to start a research career.
I started my career when I came back from America in the Indian Institute of Science. Well, then the facilities here were very, very bad. And, in fact, in entire India, there were not many facilities to do research. Then IIT Kanpur was created by Americans with the aid of American universities. When I went there, they said they want me to be the head of the department, which is very, very fantastic. By that time, I had written 2 books. I had published about 40 papers. Came back to Bangalore because I found Kanpur was not good enough for my research. I needed much better facilities, and I built 2 new departments in my area. One is Materials Research Center, another is the Solid State Chemistry Unit in the Indian Institute of Science, and that changed my career. In fact, that is when I could really start doing work after around 1977 and so on. Close to 20 years after I first started my career, I could do the kind of research I thought I should be doing. And then, of course, eventually I built this Nehru Center. For the last 10 to 12 years, I'm able to do anything I want in my area. So it has taken 40 years of my career to say that I can do exactly what I want to do. So that has been, in fact, sure enough, last 10 years I have done the best research in my life. In fact, after my age of 65 or something like that.
He started off as a spectroscopist when he was a PhD student in the USA. He worked on phase transitions. He's made remarkable contributions in the field of transition metal oxides, such as the high temperature superconductors that were discovered in the mid-80s, and he has been one of the pioneers in the field of nanomaterials.
Encouraging students who want to take up this stream of chemistry of materials, he assures that theory and computation has immensely improved in the last decade in predicting the properties and structure of molecules and materials, making it easy to calculate and simulate.
His own life is an inspiration for every young scientist in India.
He is very friendly with his students and he's listened to his students. Professor Rao is that he can shift, he can change his area of interest within a less enough time because of his proper planning and having wide area of knowledge in all areas.
His enthusiasm for the different problems is like, we could say that it's much more than students.
It's not only about science in those meetings. He tells us about music, he tells us about arts, he tells us about any other thing. So our relationship is not just like a guide and a student. He brings us more into a larger kind of a family. We are part of a larger family of his.
And I work with my students very closely on a day-to-day basis. In fact, when somebody is working on an important problem, every day I sit with them, go through what they are doing. So it is because of that we get many more results and we don't waste too much time. My students become quite prolific because of that. It is only for this reason I'm able to publish a lot of papers. And then about writing, I write a lot because I enjoy writing. I write my papers and also books. In fact, if I want to convey everything I want to in my subject, I think sometimes books are necessary because you can't write everything in papers. So I do write books quite a bit. So it has been very enjoyable. I've written, that is why, for children, what I think should be chemistry, what I think should be science, according to me, for young people. We have written books, like my wife and I have written Learning Science, which is a very nice book. It is coming in many languages now. So I hope we have done something worthwhile.
Education Technology Unit and the CNR Rao Hall of Science have conducted various workshops and programs for students and teachers. The aim of setting up the Madan Mohan Malviya Amphitheatre was to encourage science outreach programs to popularize science.
Both of them together not only have come out with books for children, but have traveled throughout the country to talk to children, and maybe they have covered hundreds of thousands of children by now.
His passion for direct contact program with young people, that has been a passion with him for the past 10 years.
As an institution builder, he has created facilities for researchers and students alike, and his success in this field has been a phenomenon.
As an institution builder, the best example you can see is Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research. Extraordinary leadership provided in Institute of Science. I think the best funding took place when he was director of Institute of Science.
He belongs to the league of Sir C.V. Raman and others. Only thing that distinguished him from any other scientist that we have known from the Indian side is the fact he is also an ace administrator.
See, that is the thing about India. You build a fantastic organization, as time goes on, it decays. We don't maintain quality. Look at the way we started TIFR, Indian Institute of Science, IITs. I am trying my best. Well, we have to create more and more good science, and we create better and better scientists, better institutions. That requires help of not only us, all of the society, the government. We in India compromise with mediocrity very easily. Third-rate work we accept. Third-rate science also we accept. So I think we have to become highly quality conscious in everything, and therefore look out our universities. They are in such a bad shape. We have to bring them up to do much better. That will take some time and effort, and I hope our government, particularly in the center, takes more interest in these matters rather than in other things which are politically more interesting maybe or more demanding.
As chairman of Scientific Advisory Committee to successive Prime Ministers, he has taken the services of science to influence policy making.
He is currently the chairman of the Science Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. The Science Advisory Council to the Prime Minister has made some very important and impact-making suggestions since 2004. Several new institutions have come up in this country. Several new institutions have been built up. Science funding for science and research and development has increased considerably in the last several years.
Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. She created the first National Committee for Science and Technology. I was a member of that. I was very young. I was 37 years old when I became a member. I was a professor in Kanpur at the time. And C. Subramaniam was our chairman. And that was a very good experience to how to plan future of India in science and so on, about institutions. That is when many things I could do at that time was setting up the Science and Engineering Research Council for funding science from Delhi, and setting up the DST. I was in that committee of where we needed Department of Science and Technology. And then later, of course, when I became chairman of the Science Advisory Council to the Prime Minister with Rajiv Gandhi, I could do many things. So it has been a wonderful experience that we could contribute a little bit to this country and science in this country. And of course, we can do much more. Of course, earlier we didn't have much money. You see, India didn't have money. We can have ideas. But now we have money. We can do more now. And we are trying to do things, provided there is a willing government and willing political system and so on. I think many things can be done now.
He was also a great innovator and a thinker. And he always thought of mega things, not small, minute things. What will stand testimony to one of his great grandiose planning is the Supercomputer Education and Research Center at the Indian Institute of Science. At the time, the whole nation did not know whether supercomputer was one word or two word. He was instrumental in creating the country's largest supercomputing facility, which later on became a great cauldron of IT and telecommunication research in the country.
He is the tallest influence on India's public policy in science.
I think what stands out is his clear vision in starting these new institutions called Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. Perhaps this idea was incubating in his mind almost for about 15 years to create these kinds of high quality teaching research institutions to encourage undergraduates start doing research right from the first year.
On the personal front, Professor Rao lives a very vibrant life. His early education was in Bangalore, and just after his degree at Banaras Hindu University and joining Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, he got married to Indumati, who is his philosopher and guide. Blessed with a happy family, he is a contented man.
Well, when I was a young child, my main inspiration was my mother, because I studied at home. I went only to middle school. I didn't go to primary school. So my mother taught me all kinds of things, particularly arithmetic, and was telling me stories and things like that. Well, at a very young age, I have seen people like C.V. Raman in Bangalore. I even heard him give a lecture in my school. And I had fantastic teachers in school. I went to Banaras to do my master's degree, because those days MSc in Banaras also required a thesis. So that is where somewhere around that time, at the age of 17 or so, or 18, I decided to become a scientist and also specialize in chemistry.
I was 22 years when we got married. In fact, earlier also, before we were married, and amongst friends, when we would to talk about what kind of person one likes to marry, I always used to say that I want to marry a person who can challenge me mentally all the time, because marriage is for life and you should have somebody whom you respect, with whom you can communicate, and who can be a friend in addition to being the husband. So that was the kind of person I wanted to marry. And by God's grace and blessings, I did marry such a person. He has influenced me a great deal. In a way, he has planned everything, even with my further education. I took admission in education and English, Masters in Education in English. Even here, I must really appreciate the fact that he knew exactly what degree I should be getting, what combination I should be getting. I keep telling him that he made me take this so that I would have some kind of a profession. I would get involved in it so that I would leave him alone to do his research and pursue his interests. He is an extremely devoted family man. By standard definition of devotion to family, quote unquote, he may not people may not think that he has time for the family, which is not true.
Well, in my life, I have a wonderful family. You know, happiness and having a very good wife, happiness very, very important in every profession, not only in science.
I remember one day you were saying, in our youth, I used to come to Calcutta and Suchitra Sen was so beautiful. I don't know whether he named Suchitra because of that. CNR Rao is the most romantic and most exciting husband which could have been in India. But it is not easy to manage such a creative person. It has lot of tension. It is like controlling a cyclone.
In lighter moments, if you can catch him, you will hear many interesting jokes, and also is a great connoisseur of good things in life. You know, good food, good everything. So I think that these are qualities which unfortunately are lacking in our scientists. Most of our scientists are very constipated.
His strong views on various topics have in fact given strength to his personality.
Research can be very boring, by the way. All research is not interesting. Some people get disgusted with their research because their guides are not very exciting and the problems are not interesting. And the young boys and girls get disillusioned with science. Well, what has happened now in India is, the last few years, too many things that have happened in India have distorted people's view of life. You know, before people wanted to be scholars, study things to get become very good in some subject. In my days, it used to be like that. Today, you know, people want to make money. Till now, there was no money. India is a poor country. 10, 15 years ago. You may have a great idea, but there is no money for science. Today, they must invest more in science. Today, we have enough money. We are still investing only 1% of the GDP. They don't give enough importance to it. Enough importance to the status of India as an intellectual power. They are more worried about Sensex, they are worried about FDI, interest rate. I have never asked anybody to give me something till now. Even God Almighty I have not asked. You know, if God is really God, He should know. Why do you ask Him, all the time go to Venkateswara in Balaji, give me that, give me that. He will say, you fool, I know everything, why are you asking? He will say. Right? So don't ask. So I have not asked. Where are we as a educational power in the world? Where are we? There, you know, we are not even 100th rank in education, of 80 or 100. See, we created big institutions at the cost of the universities without bringing a link between them properly. You know, that we must plan India's future. How will we educate? Another 5 to 6 crore children will come for higher education in 20 years. What will you do with 5 crore children? 5 crore! They'll be coming for schools, colleges. What will you do to those young boys and girls? Can't they, the same school, same engineering college, with another few hundred engineering colleges? That is not the way. We must create new employment opportunity, new venues for study. Nobody has thought about that. I'm just a scientist and a teacher. That is what my main role in life is. Being a teacher and being a scientist is the most selfless way of living. And one of the great objectives of life, in human life, is how to live a life which is selfless. The world of science has changed and it's very competitive. So India has to gear itself to meet these challenges. So we'll have to see what type of science we will do, how much we will invest on science and various activities related to science, and what kind of research, how we will improve the quality. We have to worry much more, because unless we do that, we will not be a major global player in science. Well, yeah, even now I am. I read a lot and I enjoy reading. If I have nothing, I read a story and a novel. I read a lot of fiction also, like fiction, history. I read quite a bit. Whenever I get a time and a long trip and by plane, I finish a book usually. Not science, something else. Yeah, I still read. See, I have everywhere a music system. In fact, if you had not come, I would have turned on some music. Every day, even here, I listen to about an hour's music. Early morning, my wife and I, every day, half an hour of music. As soon as we have coffee, we'll have music going.
He has been a candidate for the Nobel Prize for a long time. In fact, we can only say that when he gets it, it is not a recognition to Professor Rao. It is a recognition to chemistry of materials in particular and scientific research in general.
Well, I got every award one possibly can get. Well, of course, I've not got one or two major ones, but well, money-wise, yeah, a lot of awards. You must believe me when I say I didn't work in my life day and night to get awards. That is for sure. In Gitanjali, Tagore says, God, what is it whenever I go, this stupid shadow of mine called self follows me. That won't leave me. Wherever I go, that follows. Why don't I find a way of getting rid of that? He says. Exactly. You see, one way is doing science. You are really interested in science, interested in education, teaching. You can't think about yourself.